Hi folks, welcome to another video on CodeTutor. Have you been doing Android application development using agents, using tools like Cloud or Codex to do the Android application development? And if you have been using that, how has been the experience? When I ask this particular question to most of the Android developers, I never get an answer as not so great, and I also don't get an answer that it's going very well. The answers lies somewhere in between. Like, yeah, sort of it is helping, but then also to some extent it is not helping. So why is that? What is the problem, and how do you solve that particular problem? Typically, you start with a tutorial which asks you to imagine what an agent needs, and then based on what the AI agent needs, you basically design a workflow, and then you publish based on that particular workflow design that you have done, and that's where it ends. But in reality, this is not how typically it happens when it comes to the development. This is pretty straight line and pretty straightforward, and when you actually start using AI agents to do any kind of development, it actually goes through kind of a iteration. So usually you start with a real task, which is like implementing a feature or implementing a workflow or even say debugging it. Then you see it fail using agent, because more often than not, whatever that it generates, it will not very up to mark. And then you try to diagnose what the problem is, and once you diagnose what the problem is, more often than not, that basically means write the skills and agents based on that particular learning, and then you come back to giving a real task. So this is what more or less the actual development flow would typically look like using AI agents. And when it comes to most of the tutorials, most of them are web driven. When I say web driven, typically what happens is you edit HTML or React web page, and then as soon as you do that, it automatically is able to refresh the UI. So you save it, and then the AI agent can immediately see it, because now most of the AI agents also come up with the capability to see the browser, and then that's it. The loop continues. But this is very web driven AI agentic development that we are looking at in most of the demos. But however, what we really do in case of Android, it is not so easy. It is definitely a little bit more complicated, because in Android what typically happens is you edit the code, then Gradle build it, which typically takes at least couple of seconds, and then later you have to install on emulator or device, and after that you have to launch the application on the emulator or the device, and then later you will have to actually navigate to the screen where you had done the modification, and then have a look at the change that you have implemented. And here the agent will have to look at the screen, understand how it looked before and how it looked later after the implementation, and then based on that the agent will have to decide whether it will have to implement the whole thing again because there was some mistake, or modify the existing thing, or it has to report back saying that it has actually implemented it properly. So that is the main problem or main difference between, say, agentic Android mobile app development. So you can clearly see that there is a huge difference in the way the whole development flow differs between a web application development and a mobile application development, because at the end of the day, the LLM should be able to handle it, the skills should be able to handle it, and the whole your workflow that you have written for Android application development for the AI agents should be able to handle this particular workflow. And this particular workflow is not same as a web development. So you cannot take the same approach that you might have taken in a web application development, where you can just simply ask a browser to have a look at it, and it can simply access the HTML DOM and figure out where the problem lies. Now, most of the time, the things that typically happen in Android application development to say that whether it has successfully completed everything or not, you can ask it to run unit tests, incremental build, clean build, and run a instrumented test. AI agent can figure out these things very well. But where the problem actually happens is, even though you might have executed all of these things, the real problem is it doesn't really tell is UI rendering properly. That is one problem. Any crash happened, you have to go through the logcat. The agent has to go through the logcat. Does it have the access to the logcat? And also how to verify the new UI across before and after states. So this becomes major bottleneck when it comes to verifying using AI agents, how to build a Android application in a safe manner. And your AI is not just a brain. I mean, if you think about your AI as brain, which is nothing but your LLM, just having a brain is not good enough. You need to have a kind of a nervous system which brain uses. For example, can your brain, that is LLM, does it have the ability to sense what is happening in the emulator once it builds the new code? And then does it have the ability to control the overall flow, which is basically tool call? You can call it as motor function, to be able to read the logs, to be able to understand the complete hierarchical structure of the UI that the UI is rendering. And then does it have enough memory about the project? So it is basically about, does it have enough understanding of the context of your project? Because without that, it will not be able to answer these things. And then how to prevent your brain from doing something stupid. So you can say safeguards that can be added so that your application development workflow doesn't end up in a mess. And then what is the proof based on which you can basically say that the AI has actually done its work very well? So if you think about it, all these things are like nervous system that you have to build when it comes to Android application development, so that your LLM is basically able to handle itself and navigate itself very properly in the application landscape. So right now, this is what is missing in most of the agentic AI development tutorial landscape. So what I want to basically now do is, I am planning to create a series in which what you do is you are going to basically build a app, but the way we are going to do it is we are going to create a proper harness as we build the application, so that you understand what kind of harness is actually needed for Android application development to be done using AI agents. As we keep on building more and more features of the application, and I walk you through the various stages of the application development using this series, you will see that the harness also keeps improving, and each change in the harness is actually earned because of the way the app is built. And that is how this whole series is going to be. So treat this as a Android app development series using AI agent, where we are going to build the harness, agent, skills, workflows, templates, pretty much everything that you would need to do the native Android app development in a agentic way. So this series is not about learning the Android application development itself. The expectation is that you should already be very decent or a good enough Android application developer, and now are trying to figure out how to use the capabilities and the tools that are now available to do the agentic development of mobile apps, that is native Android mobile apps. That is what this series is going to help you with. I have not yet even figured out what app I am going to build. We are going to start building it as we figure out. So during this series, you will see how things fail, how do we recover, try to make a sense of why they are failing, what the agent is not able to understand, what harness it is missing, how to add that particular harness, how to refine the harness, how to put the guardrails, all these things, and you will see them live and you will see them fail. And as we start doing this, you will get a sense of what actually AI agentic development of Android mobile app actually looks like. And that is what you will leave with at the end of this particular series. I would be using Codex and Cloud Code for this series. Throughout the series, you would be getting access to codebase on the GitHub so that you can just understand it and you can use that to practice things on your own. So stay tuned for the new Android series, that is AI agentic Android app development series. That brings us to the end of this particular video. Don't forget to like, comment, share the video and subscribe to the channel. Take care. Bye.